Hey, welcome to the Shepherd's Chapel. Welcome to this family Bible study hour. We're ready to get back in our Father's Word. I'll tell you what, we got one that's a little graphic today. Again, the book of Judges, and Judges, the title in Hebrew means to put right or to make right. And again, as I've stipulated, not by man's law, which is a law of precedence, but by God's law, which is, it's yea or nay, yes or no. Right on. It does put right. It makes right. So we're going to, inasmuch as we are through with Samson, and Samson having been the last of the judges, we're kind of now a people without a king and without a judge, and inasmuch as the judge or the king's first line of business was protector of the faith, naturally religion or the worship of God goes downhill. You have that slips in, which is called apostasy. I mean, things really go to the dogs. Now, to lay a little groundwork for this 19th chapter, it's going to be about Gibeah. And Gibeah is mentioned in the book of Hosea, chapter 9, verse 9, whereby when you observed Hosea in the Hebrew tongue, meaning salvation or coming to salvation, it stipulated that when you saw the events that were as bad as it was in Gibeah at this time, know that it would be very soon that Christ would return. So just tuck that away in your mind and think about it a moment. Again, graphic, yep, a little bit graphic, but let's go with it. Chapter 19, verse 1 in the great book of Judges, and with that word of wisdom from our Father, and it reads, verse 1, "And it came to pass in those days, when there was no king in Israel, that there was a certain Levite sojourning on the side of Mount Ephraim, there in the hill country, who took to him a concubine out of Bethlehem, Judah." A concubine, this word in the Hebrew means a paramour, a secondary wife, let's say, which was legal for this time. And of course, I remind you again, he took her from Bethlehem, Judah, Bethlehem being stipulated as Bethlehem, Judah, so that you do not confuse it with the Bethlehem of Zebulun, but also as the birthplace of Christ, and also the place that the mother of the last patriarch of the tribes would die there. Verse 2, "And his concubine played the whore against him, and went away from him unto her father's house to Bethlehem, Judah, and was there 4 whole months." Now, it seemed to me that the translators of the King James Version were, and rightly so as it was of the times, were quite handy to call a woman a whore. I disagree with this, and I know it seems that this happens with me quite often, does it not? But just because a woman is a good businesswoman in fabrics, such as Rahab, she was not a whore. She was a good businesswoman, but she was called that. Now, I could go into the Masorah and document why I doubt this terminology, but I can prove it to you much easier. And that's simply the Septuagint, which is a Greek translation of, we'll say, the Old Testament, was taken from a much older set of Hebrew manuscripts than this King James was. And read this verse in a Septuagint, and it said simply that his concubine departed from him. The word harlot is not mentioned. I don't think it should be. I think she was homesick and simply wanted to go home because she was, no doubt, a very young person. Verse 3. That is to say, I say that because the scriptures document that this word has been added, all right? And therefore, I think it's important that we stick with truth so that you get the full emotion and love from this. Now, we're going to have the 4 whole months, 4 periods of time. 4 means creation of the world. We're going to get into some dates, and I'm going to mention them because we know that in Hosea 9:9 and back up to verse 7, that it stipulates that this will be a play of the last days, so naturally it must have to do with the dispensation of time. So I'll be calling things to your attention as we go. Verse 3. And her husband arose and went after her to speak friendly. That means to speak affectionately. This Hebrew word means to speak from the heart. All right? He loved her. Unto her, and to bring her again, having his servant with him, and a couple of asses, and she brought him into her father's house. And when the father of the damsel saw him, he rejoiced to meet him. I mean, he naturally hoped to reconcile them, and it was obvious that this is why this Levite, who loved this girl a great deal, this in itself lets you know that probably she didn't play the part of a whore, all right? Verse 4. And some might say, well, back that up. Well, she was, in the first place, she was his secondary wife, and now, yeah, that's against the civil laws of the land today. It was not at this time, especially when we have a Levite who was no doubt a priest. So it was simply a secondary wife, and if she had hired her body out, he would not be seeking her, no doubt. But it's obvious to me from the manuscripts that she was homesick. She went home. He loved her very much, so he went to reconcile. Verse 4. And his father-in-law, the damsel's father, retained him. And he abode with him 3 days, so they did eat and drink and lodged there. And of course we would see here the 3 dispensations without law, so to speak, all right? Before the law, 5. And it came to pass on the 4th day, now here we move on to the 4th, let's say dispensation or a type thereof. That means earth, all right, or earthly, like the 4 seasons, the 4 directions and so forth, meaning earthly. When they arose early in the morning, that he rose up to depart, and the damsel's father said unto his son-in-law, Comfort thine heart with a morsel of bread, and afterward go your way. In other words, here with this 4, we're under the law, and the time that Israel itself would reject the law. Verse 6. And they sat down and did eat and drink both of them together. For the damsel's father had said unto the man, Be content, I pray thee, and tarry all night, and let thine heart be merry. I mean, he was trying to hang. Did he love his daughter also? No doubt he did. And evidently he's very fond even of this Levite that took his daughter to wife. And he hates to see him go. 7. And when the man rose up to depart, his father-in-law urged him, therefore he lodged there again, talked him into it. 8. And of course this would come to the 5th day. And he arose early in the morning on the 5th day, bearing in mind that the day began at this time on the calendar at sunset. The 5th day to depart, and the damsel's father said, Comfort thine heart, I pray thee. And they tarried until afternoon, and they did eat both of them. Now 5, of course, was the period, dispensationally speaking, is the period of grace. 5 being symbolic of grace. Verse 9. And when the man rose up to depart, he and his concubine and his servant, his father-in-law, the damsel's father, said unto him, Behold, now the day draweth toward evening. He's making for time here. He stalled him until he's going to say, now it's too late. I pray ye tarry all night. Behold, the day groweth to an end. Lodge here, stay here another night, that thine heart may be merry, and tomorrow go ye early on your way, that thou mayest go home. In other words, get an early start and make it all the way home. 10, but the man would not tarry that night, even though it is late in the day. But he rose up and departed and came over against Jebus, which is Jerusalem. In other words, the Jebusites founded the city, and they called it Jebus, of the Jebusites. David, when he conquered it, would name it Yaroshalam, which is to say the city of peace. And there were with him 2 asses saddled. His concubine also was with him. Now, you did not travel at night. Now, Jebusites were not, you might say, kin. They weren't part of the tribes. They were strangers. And it's getting late. Verse 11. And when they were by Jebus, the day was far spent. And the servant said unto his master, Come, I pray thee, and let us turn in into this city of the Jebusites, and lodge in it. Now, they probably would have been a lot better off had they lodged among the Jebusites than his own brothers that he's about to lodge with, and what they would do to him and the damsel. Verse 12. And his master said unto him, We will not turn aside hither into the city of a stranger. These are not our people. That is not of the children of Israel. We will pass over to Gibeah. And of course, Gibeah in the Hebrew tongue simply means a hill. We can't add anything to that. But it was supposed to be a safe haven for an Israelite traveling at night. Verse 13. And he said unto his servant, Come and let us draw near to one of these places to lodge all night, in Gibeah or in Ramah, both of these being hills. 14. And they passed on and went their way, and the sun went down upon them when they were by Gibeah, which belongeth to Benjamin. In other words, here we come to the 6th day, and this would be the dispensation in which we are now in. It would also be the events that would transpire that would cause your father to say, when you see those events of Gibeah happen in your time, know that the point of Hosea, salvation, Yeshua, is near. All right. Well, check it out for yourself. 15. And they turned aside thither to go in and to lodge in Gibeah, and when he went in, he set him down in a street of the city, and there was no man that took them into his into his house to lodging. Now, comparing the 6th dispensation, how would you like to go into a strange town, even if it is your people, and camp out in the street? I mean, when God says it's like that, compare, look around. I guarantee you there are some places I would certainly not like to spend the night, not without a lot of company, a lot of heat. Verse 16. And behold, there came an old man from his work out of the fields at even, which was also of Mount Ephraim. He wasn't a Benjamite. And he sojourned in Gibeah. In other words, he was a stranger there also, so to speak, though he would be an Israelite. It wasn't his home. But the men of the place were Benjamites. So he also was not in his home setting. 17. But evidently was working there in agriculture. 17. And when he had lifted up his eyes, he saw a wayfaring man in the street of the city. And the old man said, Whither goest thou? And whence comest thou? Question. 18. And he said unto him, We are passing from Bethlehem, Judah, toward the side of Mount Ephraim. From thence am I. And I went to Bethlehem, Judah, but I am now going to the house of the Lord, and there is no man that receiveth me to house. In other words, I'm on my way. He was a Levite. Naturally, the house of the Lord means, no doubt, where he worked. That's where his duties as a priest were. And he said, there's nobody here in this town has offered to take us in. So we see that the people were in a point of degradation because of lack of religion, so to speak. I kind of dislike to use that word, but it'll serve the purpose. No doubt they worshipped idols as well. We observed before what happened to the Benjamites, that when they went there to settle, they took stole graven images to worship. Not confusing Dan with Benjamin, but so it was. A point of degradation, all right? It's no different today. You let a generation grow up whereby the media, your socialistic media, snickers when they hear the word Christianity or mock about Christ or religion, whereby that affects a young person. Don't think it doesn't. And they become ashamed and pull away from maybe asking a question that would bring them peace of mind because of some nut on the boob tube passing out bum opinions and information, thinking it's cute. But that brings degradation into a nation. It's just like a media that will say or pass it off the very basest of morals, saying, oh, well, it just happened. Now, don't tell me you don't know what I'm talking about, because you've had an earful of it for a long time now. Verse 19. Yet there is both straw and provender for our asses, and no one would receive them there, of course, we've got plenty of stuff with us to feed our own animals and ourselves. We won't be a burden, is what he's saying here. And there is bread and wine also for me and for thy handmaiden, and for the young man which is with thy servants. There is no want of anything. We have everything we need. We just need a place to stay safely. Verse 20. And the old man said, peace be with thee. That's a salute. Howsoever, let all thy wants lie upon me. Only lodge not in the street. And again, can you imagine lodging in a street of some of the cities in America today with what goes on there? Think about it. 21. And he brought him into his house and gave provender unto the asses, and they washed their feet and did eat and drink. And naturally, the sandals was the uniform of the day, and when you walk on dirt paths, the feet are very dirty. So it was a custom. 22. Now, as they were making their hearts merry, visiting back and forth, passing the time and so forth, behold, the men of the city, certain sons of Belial, beset the house round about and beat at the door, and spake to the master of the house, the old man, saying, bring forth the man that came into thine house, that we may know him. In other words, they're not after the damsel. They're not after the old man's daughter. They're a bunch of perverts. They want the man. Now, this allows you to know that in this 6-day dispensation where Satan's influence is so prevalent and strong, and you have a media that's ready to cover Satan's little tricks, that fosters the negative rather than the positive, this is what you get into, okay? Verse 23. And the man, the master of the house, went out unto them and said unto them, nay, my brethren, nay, I pray you, do not so wickedly, seeing that this man is come into mine house, do not this folly. In other words, he's under my roof, he's under my protection. And he's talking very peaceable to them, calling them brethren, and they were Benjamites, he being an Ephraimite. 24. Behold, here is my daughter, a maiden, and his concubine. Them I will bring out, and humble ye them, and do with them what seemeth good unto you, but unto this man do not so vile a thing. Now, I have a great deal of problems with this, and those of you that have heard me teach this book before or on other subjects know that. You know also that in Genesis chapter 19, along about verse 6, this same thing happened to Lot when the perverts were trying to get two angels, and this was before God had cleansed the sanctuary for the last time, as it is recorded in the book of Joshua, just preceding this book of Judges. And he said, I'm not going to do it for you anymore. What did God do at that time? The angel of God zapped them. And that's what should have happened here. But rather than, in this modern day, anyone that will not protect his family is not a Christian, okay? Oh, dear brother, oh, dear God, what is that pastor saying? I said, a man, if anybody tries to molest your wife and you don't kick his teeth out, you're not a good Christian. Trying to molest your wife right in front of you. And, it's very difficult for me to imagine this man doing this. This is the time you would like to step outside with Brother Thompson. And, Brother Thompson was very fitting because he had a lovely hymn he liked to sing. It kind of goes rat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat-a. And if you hold Brother Thompson like this, he has a way of going up, But if you turn him over sideways, he just makes a neat circle, just rat-a-tat-a, singing his little hymn that just lulls him to sleep. It would have been very nice had they been armed to the point they could have done this and put that bunch of perverts where they should be. Now, I'm against violence, but if violence comes to me, let violence begat violence. But here we have this situation. Did God have it happen this way? Yes. In a sense, he's allowing it to happen to prove a lesson for one and all times that is so very graphic that it bothers me every time I have to teach this lecture to see this done. Because we're going to put those two girls out on the street, right in the center of that bunch of perverts. And they're going to abuse and use them all night long. I don't think I could have slept good in that home then. I would have found something. Always, you have the right to protect your home. Always see that you do. Always follow the laws of the land. But this is a great nation where we have the rights and the freedom of bearing arms in most places. And you have the right in your home to protect it. Make sure you know what you're doing and that you're well trained. But don't wait until some situation as this happens to say, I wish I had trained. Think about it. A word to the wise is sufficient. On with it, 25. But the men would not hearken to him. So the man brought his concubine and brought her forth unto them, and they knew her and abused her all the night until the morning. And when the day began to spring, they let her go. 26. Now picture this well. Then came the woman in the dawning of the day and fell down at the door of the man's house where her Lord was till it was light. She was too weak to make it past the threshold. 27. And her Lord rose up in the morning and opened the doors of the house and went out to go his way. And behold, the woman, his concubine, was fallen down at the door of the house, and her hands were upon the threshold. She was reaching out to him. It just breaks my heart. Now, I know there are meanings that are deeper underlying within this, but as an old combat Marine, it just makes my blood boil. It really does. I mean, I know how to deal with people like this, and have had to, on other occasions, have to deal with them. And it's a shame that we have to use this as an example, but at the same time, hey friend, Christ's bride, his virgin bride that is supposed to be waiting for him, is being abused daily. Spiritually speaking, do you understand what I'm saying? By the media, and by the nonsense that is put forth in a perversive way to people today that is so far away that they tell your little children they can't even pray in school. We've allowed that to happen in this great nation that was founded, the very Constitution itself, from this set of laws, the Holy Bible, the Holy Word of God, that we let a bunch of perverted minds move into a power play, and people are afraid. I tell children, you pray all you want to. You just pray silently in your own mind for your homework, and because it's real easy to outsmart perverted minds. And we have the power and authority over them in the first place. But you're going to see a people within this, before we finish, that are going to make this right. I wonder how long it will be now before our people make it right. I can answer, it's not going to be long. He that has the right to make it right will descend rather, on this earth. And things are going to be A-okay. Because you know what? He's not coming back with Brother Tommy, the hymn singer. He's coming back with a rod of iron to kind of whip and shape up some attitudes. It's going to be a wonderful day, a rejoicing. Verse 28. And many people will say, well, don't you pray for them? Yeah, after you take care of them, then pray for their souls. But take care of them first. 28. And he said unto her, up and let us be going. But none answered. Why, she was dead. And then the man took her up upon an ass, and the man rose up and gat him unto his place. Again, I have trouble with the fact he did not die protecting her, but then I suppose he wouldn't have lived to do what he's got to do, be that as it may. You know, always know this. Perverted minds are cowards. It doesn't take much to spook them. All you got to do is say, boo! And they're usually ready to put weigh anchor and haul, shove off. So, you know, it doesn't take much. So that's why you want to always be prepared to protect your own. Not to take away from this report. 29. And when he was come into his house, he took a knife. It's graphic now, hang on. And laid hold on his concubine and divided her together with her bones into 12 pieces, and sent her into all the coast of Israel, one part to each of the 12 tribes. 30. And it was so that all that saw it said, there was no such deed done nor seen from the day that the children of Israel came up out of the land of Egypt unto this day. Consider of it, take advice, and speak your minds. And I tell you this, as it is written in Hosea chapter 9, verse 9, 7 through 9, that this is how it would be just before Christ would return, where we would slip to this point of depravity, degradation. That it makes one stop and think, when will it be put right? See that it never gets out of control inside your own home. You are the law in your house. Chapter 20. So he sends, if you don't understand what's happened here, he dismembered the little lady and sent her to the other tribes, saying, look what happened, giving the story of what happened in this town of Benjamin. And the question is, what are we going to do about it? Chapter 20, verse 1, then all the children of Israel went out, and the congregation was gathered together as one man. That means every one of them hated it with a passion. From Dan even to Beersheba. Beersheba in the Hebrew tongue means the well of the oath. With the land of Gilead, unto the Lord in Mizpah. Mizpah being watchtower. About time to get a watchman out. Verse 2. And the chief of all the people, head guru here, okay, even of all the tribes of Israel, presented themselves in the assembly of the people of God, 400,000 footmen that drew sword. We got quite an army here. 400,000. Verse 3. Now the children of Benjamin heard that the children of Israel were gone up to Mizpah. They then said the children of Israel, tell us, how was this wickedness? How did this happen among you? To the Benjamites. 4. And the Levite, the husband of the woman that was slain, answered and said, I came into Gibeah that belongeth to Benjamin, I and my concubine to lodge. He shares this. He's sharing this with 400,000 armed persons that are looking for revenge. 5. And the men of Gibeah rose against me and beset the house round about upon me by night, and thought to have slain me. It wasn't slain, they wanted to know him. Do you know what the terminology to know him means? And my concubine have they forced that she is dead. Now, I imagine you probably have, I don't think I've made it any secret, my inner feelings concerning this affair and what should have happened to those yo-yos, all right? Those perverted minds. I don't think I've made any secret of it. I guarantee you, we got 400,000 here that do not like it any better. Verse 6. And I took my concubine and cut her in pieces and sent her throughout all the country of the inheritance of Israel. For they have committed lewdness and folly in Israel. 7. Behold, ye are all children of Israel. Give here your advice and counsel. Let's have it out in the open. What are we going to do? And verse 8 reads, and all the people arose as one man. I like this because it's all in unison. They're all in agreement, saying, we will not, any of us, go to his tent. We're not going home. Neither will we, any of us, turn into his house. We're not going home. We're going straight and take care of this immediately. 9. But now this shall be the thing which we shall do to Gibeah. We will go up by lot against it. In other words, we're going to draw lots to see who will be the front line and so on and so forth. You know, 400,000 against one town. Not necessary to just all rush in. 10. And we will take 10 men of 100 throughout all the tribes of Israel, and 100 of 1,000, and 1,000 of 10,000 to fetch victual of the people, for the people. In other words, to be this quartermaster, the supply officers, that they may go when they come to Gibeah of Benjamin according to all the folly that they have wrought in Israel. Verse 11, so all the men of Israel were gathered against the city, knit together as one man. Now something's going to happen. Something's going to give. We're going to see some perverted minds have a little attitude adjustment in the next lecture. To me, these are very painful scriptures when I take in the full scope of prophecy, knowing that our present time at the end would be exactly like that. And when I look from city to city and from country to country, when I see I cannot say the demise of religion, but when I see traditions of men worked in as religion that put those that would be in a position to speak firmly and boldly, brainwashing them into thinking that to follow God you must be a second-class citizen and allow people to trample on you, just pray for them. That's not God's way. You're going to find it out here in the next lecture. That isn't God's way. Let's take Jesus himself as an example. If you think that I have been a little gruff in my own emotions concerning this affair, take Christ himself when he saw the beautiful house of his Father and there was a bunch of mite-infested doves and money changers sitting in the very temple itself to make money in the temple of God. And that's like passing by the Quick Trip and picking up a little something to give to God. And he took a cat of nine tails and whipped them and upset their tables. I can hear that silver ring in my ears as it hit that marble and jangled across the floors. And as he raised his voice and whipped them from the temple. You think he prayed for them? After the fact, perhaps. But judges itself means to put right. So the entire power of God's authority to put right is about to see a bunch of people put right or made right. Because we're going to take care of it as a people, all together, as one voice. It will be cared for. Don't miss the next lecture. All right, bless your heart, you. Listen a moment, won't you please?